I never expected summer camp counselor training to change my life. But here I am, lying in the dark at 2 in the morning, listening to my bunkmate breathe. And everything I thought I knew about myself is completely unraveling. My name is Dylan, and 3 days ago I showed up at Pine Ridge Summer Camp thinking this would be just another summer job. Good pay, outdoors, working with kids. Simple, safe. I had just finished my junior year of college, and honestly, I needed the escape. My girlfriend and I had broken up in April, and I was still processing that whole mess. She said I was emotionally distant, that I never really let her in. Maybe she was right. I don't know. What I do know is that I wasn't expecting to meet someone who would make me question everything. His name is Miles. Miles Chen. He walked into our shared cabin on that first afternoon, all confident energy and easy smiles, and I remember thinking he seemed like the kind of guy who made friends effortlessly. He was wearing a faded camp t-shirt from some previous summer, and had this way of moving that was just naturally graceful. I'm not someone who usually notices things like that about other guys, but with Miles, I noticed. He had dark hair that fell across his forehead, and when he smiled, really smiled, his whole face transformed. We shook hands, did the whole awkward introduction thing. He's a year older than me, finishing up his degree in elementary education. He told me he'd been coming to Pine Ridge since he was a kid, first as a camper, then as a junior counselor, and now he was back for his third summer on staff. There was this warmth in his voice when he talked about the place, like it genuinely meant something to him. That first night, we stayed up late talking, not about anything deep, just the usual getting to know you stuff. Favorite movies, worst college professors, whether pineapple belongs on pizza. He's firmly pro-pineapple, which I gave him endless grief about. But the conversation flowed easily, naturally, and I found myself laughing more than I had in months. When we finally turned out the lights, I lay there in my bunk, feeling oddly content. Like maybe this summer wouldn't be so bad after all. The training days were intense. We spent hours learning emergency protocols, reviewing child development principles, practicing activity management. Miles and I were paired together for a lot of the exercises, which meant we spent most of our waking hours side by side. I started noticing little things about him, the way he'd bite his lower lip when he was concentrating, how he always made sure everyone in our group felt included in discussions, the fact that he was genuinely, effortlessly kind to everyone he met. On the second day, we had to do this trust exercise where one person falls backward and the other catches them. I went first, and Miles caught me easily, his hands firm on my shoulders. For just a second, we were close enough that I could smell his shampoo, something clean and woodsy, and I felt this weird flutter in my chest that I immediately dismissed. When it was his turn, he hesitated for just a moment before letting himself fall. I caught him, and he looked up at me with this grateful smile that made something twist in my stomach. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying moments from the day. The way Miles had laughed at my stupid joke during lunch. How our hands had brushed when we were both reaching for the same training manual. The comfortable silence we'd fallen into during the evening campfire. I told myself I was just overthinking things because I was still emotionally raw from the breakup. That's all it was. Just my brain being weird. But then came last night. The night that changed everything. We'd had a long day of outdoor skills training, and we were both exhausted. Miles took the first shower while I organized my stuff, and when he came back, his hair was damp and he was wearing this old college t-shirt and sweatpants. He looked comfortable and unguarded, and I felt that flutter again, stronger this time. We talked for a bit about the next day's schedule, and then he climbed into his bunk, which was directly across from mine, maybe 4 feet away. I read for a while, some thriller novel I'd brought from home, but I couldn't focus. My eyes kept drifting over to Miles, watching the rise and fall of his breathing as he slept. The moonlight coming through the window cast shadows across his face, and I found myself thinking he looked peaceful. Beautiful, even. That thought scared me enough that I forced myself to turn off my reading light and try to sleep. I must have dozed off because I woke up to the sound of my name. Just once. Barely a whisper. Dylan. I lay there, completely still, my heart suddenly pounding. Had I imagined it? But then I heard it again. Clearer this time. Dylan. It was Miles. He was saying my name in his sleep. I should have just rolled over and gone back to sleep. That would have been the normal thing to do. But instead, I found myself holding my breath, listening. He shifted in his bunk and I heard the rustle of sheets. Then, in the dim light, I saw his arm extend toward my bunk, his hand reaching out like he was searching for something. For someone. For me. My chest felt tight. I couldn't breathe. Miles was dreaming about me, reaching for me in his sleep. What did that mean? What the hell did that mean? His hand hung there in the space between our bunks for what felt like forever, and I had this insane urge to reach back, to let my fingers brush against his, to see what would happen. But I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I lay there frozen, my mind racing, until finally his arm dropped back down and his breathing evened out again. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I just lay there, staring at the wooden slats of the bunk above me, trying to process what had happened, trying to understand why my heart was still racing, why the thought of Miles dreaming about me made me feel terrified and thrilled and confused all at once. Because here's the thing I've been avoiding admitting, even to myself. I think I'm attracted to him, to Miles, and I have no idea what to do with that information. I've never been attracted to a guy before, never even considered it. Sure, I could recognize when a guy was objectively good looking, but it never meant anything. It was just an observation, nothing more. But with Miles, it's different. When he smiles at me, I feel it in my chest. When we're working together and our shoulders touch, I'm hyper-aware of every point of contact. When he talks, I find myself watching his mouth, wondering what it would feel like to kiss him. Oh God, I want to kiss him. When did that happen? How did that happen? The morning after the sleep-talking incident was torture. I was running on 0 sleep and maximum anxiety. Miles woke up cheerful as always, completely oblivious to the crisis I was having. He asked if I wanted to grab breakfast together, and I said yes, even though the thought of sitting across from him and pretending everything was normal felt impossible. At breakfast, he was telling some story about a prank war from a previous summer, and I was trying to focus on his words, but all I could think about was the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, the way he used his hands when he talked, the fact that he'd said my name in his sleep. "Dylan, you okay?" he asked suddenly, and I realized I'd completely zoned out. "You seem distracted." "Just tired," I said, which wasn't a lie. "Didn't sleep great." He gave me this concerned look that made my stomach flip. "Yeah, I noticed you tossing and turning. Sorry if I kept you up. I apparently talk in my sleep sometimes." My heart stopped. He knew, or did he? Was he testing me? "Do you," I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "Talk in your sleep, I mean." He shrugged, looking a bit embarrassed. My college roommates used to give me grief about it. I never remember what I say, though. Hopefully, nothing too embarrassing. I forced a laugh. "Nothing embarrassing," I lied. Just some mumbling. Couldn't make out any words. The relief on his face was obvious, and I felt guilty for lying. But what was I supposed to say? "Hey, you said my name and reached for me, And now I can't stop thinking about what that means. Yeah, that would go over well. The rest of the day was a blur of training activities, but I felt Miles watching me more than usual. Or maybe I was just hyper-aware of him. Every time I looked up, it seemed like he was looking at me. During the afternoon swimming certification, I caught him staring at me from across the pool. And when our eyes met, he didn't look away immediately. Instead, he held my gaze for a long moment, and there was something in his expression I couldn't quite read. Something that made my pulse quicken. That evening, we had free time before dinner, and Miles suggested we take a walk down to the lake. Just the two of us. I should have made an excuse, should have put some distance between us while I sorted out my head. But instead I said yes because apparently I'm a glutton for punishment. The lake was beautiful in the early evening light, all golden and peaceful. We walked along the shore in silence for a while, and it should have been comfortable. But there was this tension humming between us. Or maybe I was just projecting. Maybe this was all in my head. "Can I ask you something?" Miles said finally, stopping to pick up a smooth stone and skip it across the water. "And you can tell me if I'm overstepping." My heart was in my throat. "Sure. Your ex-girlfriend, the one you mentioned the first night. Are you still hung up on her?" The question caught me off guard. "No," I said honestly. I mean, it hurt when it ended, but I think I knew for a while that it wasn't right. We wanted different things. He nodded, watching the ripples from his stone spread across the water. "What did she want that you didn't?" I thought about that. Connection, I guess. Real intimacy. She said I kept her at arm's length, that I never fully let her in. "Did you?" he asked, and there was no judgment in his voice, just curiosity. "Keep her at arm's length?" "Yeah," I admitted. "I did. I just didn't know why at the time. And now, do you know why?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and the words were right there on the edge of my tongue. Because maybe I was looking for the wrong thing. Because maybe what I needed was something I didn't even know I was missing. Because maybe I've been lying to myself about who I am and what I want. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I said, "I'm still figuring it out." He turned to face me fully, and we were standing close. Closer than we needed to be. The setting sun cast a warm glow across his face, and I could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "Dylan," he said softly, and just the way he said my name made my breath catch. "I need to tell you something." Everything seemed to slow down. The gentle lap of water against the shore. The distant call of birds. The sound of my own heartbeat. "Okay," I managed. "I like you," he said, and the words hung between us, impossible to take back. "I know we just met a few days ago, and maybe this is crazy, but I really like you. And I think, maybe, you might feel the same way. Am I completely off base here?" I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. He liked me. Miles liked me. And he was standing there, vulnerable and brave, waiting for me to respond. I should say something, anything. But my brain had completely short-circuited. "It's okay if you don't," he continued, and I could hear the nervousness in his voice now. "If you're not, I mean, if you don't feel that way, we can just forget I said anything and go back to being bunkmates, and everything will be fine." "No," I said, finally finding my voice. "No. I don't want to forget you said anything." Hope flickered across his face. "You don't. Miles. I've never—" I paused, trying to find the right words. "I've never felt this way about a guy before. About anyone, really. And it's terrifying because I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm probably going to mess this up, but yes. I feel the same way." The smile that broke across his face was like sunrise. Really? Really? I said, and I couldn't help but smile back. You said my name. Last night. In your sleep. You reached for me. His eyes widened. Oh God, I did. I didn't know if you heard that. I heard it, I said, and I've been losing my mind about it for the past 24 hours. He laughed, and the sound was full of relief and joy. I've been losing my mind about you since you walked into our cabin, Dylan. You have this way of looking at things like you're really seeing them, really thinking about them. And when you smile, really smile, it's like the sun coming out. I couldn't help falling for you. No one had ever said anything like that to me before. My ex had told me she loved me, but it had never felt like this. This felt like being seen, like being known. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. I don't know what I'm doing. Neither do I, he said, but maybe we can figure it out together. He reached out tentatively, and I met him halfway, our fingers intertwining. His hand was warm, slightly calloused from outdoor work, and holding it felt like the most natural thing in the world. We stood there by the lake, hands clasped, just looking at each other, and I felt something shift inside me. Like a door I didn't know was closed had suddenly opened. Can I kiss you? He asked quietly. Yes, I breathed, and he leaned in slowly, giving me every opportunity to change my mind, but I didn't want to change my mind. I wanted this. Wanted him. His lips were soft against mine, tentative at first, and then more sure as I kissed him back. It was nothing like kissing my ex-girlfriend. It was better. It felt right in a way that nothing else ever had. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing hard, and he was smiling at me with such tenderness that I felt something crack open in my chest. Wow, I said, because apparently my vocabulary had been reduced to single syllables. Yeah, he agreed. Wow. We walked back to camp holding hands, and I kept expecting to feel scared or confused. But I just felt happy. Happier than I'd been in longer than I could remember. When we got close to the main area where other counselors might see us, he gave my hand a gentle squeeze and let go, and I understood. We'd need to be careful. Figure out how open we wanted to be. But that was okay. We had time. That night, back in our cabin, we lay in our respective bunks. But it felt different now. The space between us wasn't a gulf anymore. It was just 4 feet of air that we'd already crossed. Dylan, Miles said into the darkness. Yeah? I'm really glad you're here. Me too, I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. The next few days were a mixture of training and stolen moments, quick conversations during breaks, sitting close at meals, late-night talks after lights out. We were careful around the other counselors, but in private, we were learning each other. Miles told me about coming out to his parents his sophomore year of college, how scared he'd been, and how accepting they'd turned out to be. I told him about my fears, about feeling like I'd wasted years of my life not understanding myself. He listened without judgment, just held my hand and let me work through it. One afternoon, we snuck away during free time to a secluded spot by the lake. We sat on a fallen log, and he taught me how to skip stones properly. Every time I succeeded, he'd cheer like I'd won an Olympic medal, and I'd laugh and call him ridiculous. At one point, he kissed my cheek, just a quick press of lips, and I turned to capture his mouth with mine. We kissed until we were both breathless, and then we just sat there, foreheads pressed together, smiling like idiots. I think I'm falling in love with you, I said, and the words surprised me, even as I said them. But they were true. In less than a week, Miles had become the most important person in my world. Good, he said, his breath warm against my lips. Because I'm already there. The night before the campers were set to arrive, the head counsellor threw a bonfire for all the staff. We sat in a big circle, roasting marshmallows and telling stories, and I was acutely aware of Miles beside me. Not touching, but close. At one point he leaned over and whispered, "Meet me at the lake after this." And I nodded. An hour later, after everyone had drifted off to their cabins, I made my way down the dark path to the lake. Miles was already there, sitting on the dock with his feet dangling in the water. I sat down beside him, and he immediately took my hand. "I've been thinking," he said, "about us. About what happens after summer ends." My stomach tightened. I'd been trying not to think about that, about the fact that this might just be a summer thing. "What about it?" "I go to school in Oregon," he said. "You're in Colorado." "That's a long distance." "Yeah," I said quietly. "It is." He turned to face me, and even in the darkness, I could see the intensity in his eyes. "But I don't care. Dylan, I know this is fast, and I know we're still figuring things out. But I don't want this to end when summer ends. I want to try, really try. If you do," relief flooded through me. "I want that too," I said. "I want to try." He kissed me then, deep and slow, and I poured everything I was feeling into it. All my hope and fear and overwhelming affection for this person who'd somehow become everything to me in such a short time. When we finally pulled apart, he rested his head on my shoulder, and we sat there in comfortable silence, watching the moon reflect on the water. I thought about my ex-girlfriend, about how she'd said I never let her in. But here I was, completely vulnerable, completely open, and it didn't feel scary. It felt like coming home. "You know what's funny?" I said. "A week ago, I thought I knew exactly who I was, what I wanted. And now everything's different." "Is that a bad thing?" Miles asked. "No," I said. "It's the best thing that's ever happened to me." We stayed there until the early hours of the morning, talking about everything and nothing. Our dreams for the future, our fears, our favorite childhood memories. He told me about the first time he realized he was gay, how confused and scared he'd been. I told him about the moment I'd heard him say my name in his sleep, how it had cracked something open inside me. "I'm sorry I took so long to get here," I said. "To figure this out. To find you." He squeezed my hand. "You got here exactly when you were supposed to." We both did. As the sky started to lighten with the approaching dawn, we reluctantly headed back to our cabin. We had a big day ahead. The campers would arrive in the afternoon, and we'd need to be on our game. But for now, we climbed into our bunks. And just before I drifted off to sleep, I heard Miles whisper, "Good night, Dylan. I love you." "I love you too," I whispered back, and I felt him smile in the darkness. The summer stretched ahead of us, full of possibility. I didn't know exactly what would happen, how we'd navigate the challenges of being together in a world that wasn't always accepting, how we'd manage the distance when camp ended. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. And that was enough, more than enough. It was everything.